Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to yet another edition of RaceBot TV Friday Primetime here in the Indy Pro 2000 Championship. I am Connery Maddock, and joining me today will be the ever-wonderful Mr. Ryan Walker. Welcome to Suzuka. Welcome to Japan, which will play host to round number 10 of the Indy Pro 2000 Championship. One of my favorite tracks, at least in motorsport and on the iRacing service, an absolute ball when it comes to high downforce open wheel racing, which is what we'll get to see here today. Track information up on your screen right now. And, well, Ryan, it's Suzuka, it's the Indy Pro 2000 Championship. It's, well, a pretty good pairing, I would say.
Yeah, a really good combination for this evening, and this track has hosted a whole range of different stuff in real life: Formula One World Championship, Super GT, and this evening, like you mentioned, hosting the Indy Pro 2000 Championship. And I think we are going to be in for an absolute cracker of a race.
Yeah, I think we are as well. So, basically, we are coming towards the very back end of the season now. Round number 10. Of course, we have that extra round here in the official iRacing season because the devs want to get things back on cycle as far as the seasons are concerned. So we'll actually have a 13-week season, and then our typical week 13 will actually be week 14 as far as the season is concerned. But, you know, at this back end of the season, a lot of drivers starting to get their participation credits for obviously participating in the series as well. And, you know, the competition in the series has been pretty good as well, especially in that mid-pack, which is, I think, going to be the main focus here today as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a whole range of drivers in the series this season that's shown us what they can do. They've been on the pace up at the front, but also in the mid-pack as well. Like you say, we've had some fantastic battles, and the likes of Paul Ilbrink, Greg Seitz, Evan Imrie, also Ross Woodford, and a whole other range of drivers have been absolutely on it this season. I think, this evening it's going to be really, really close again.
Yeah, I think it is as well. So Elio Media, of course, is taking part in this one. We've got Paul Ilbrink, we've got Ross Woodford, Seitz, Pinsker. A lot of the big names in this championship have actually showed up to this strength of field race right now. So this is a particularly interesting predicament. We actually are coming towards the end of qualifying at the moment. So if we can just bring you a little bit of on-track action, that would be absolutely fantastic. There's one of those drivers. That is Greg Seitz out there, currently third place in qualifying for the moment. And, well, second row on the starting grid in a strength of field like this is not too shabby of a performance in qualifying.
Absolutely not. And at the moment, qualifying is currently being held, or the pole position man currently up at the front is Suelio Almeida, who took the win at Mid-Ohio last week after pretty much dominating that race, and it'll be interesting to see if he can do the same again. But with these long straights at Suzuka, I think Woodford and Seitz will be in contention.
Yeah, I think they will as well, as they've been particularly competitive. Greg Seitz coming towards the back end of one of his laps. He's heading his way through Spoon Curve at the moment. And oh, that's a big, big slide. Hold it together, Seitz. And he has been able to do so, but that lap is for all intents and purposes ruined for the moment. But we will watch him through towards the end of it regardless. Coming up towards that very fast and very dangerous left-hander, 130R. Feed the car through there, and well, he kind of knows that this lap is not going to be a great one. So if he can get to the end of it, and you know, probably not going to improve on third place, I'll be very, very surprised if he will. Across the line he goes, and that is going to be no improvement there for Greg Seitz. So he will stay in third place here on the starting grid. Not a lot of cars. In fact, one other car out there on circuit going very, very slow. So I think this is the qualifying grid set here for this round number 10 at Suzuka in the Indy Pro 2000 Championship. So there we go. Almeida on the top of the pile by 0.4 of a second there, which is an impressive performance, Ryan.
Absolutely. As Almeida has pretty much been the man on form at the moment, and they, like Mid-Ohio last week, took the win in dominating form, and I think he's got to be the favourite for this race tonight.
Yeah, I think it is as well. So with that over and done with, we can take you through our starting grid for round number 10 of the Indy Pro 2000 Championship here on iRacing. Suelio Almeida, pole position by 0.4 of a second over Ross Woodford. Greg Seitz in third place with James Pinsker lining up in fourth. And then you have Teemu Valkiavi in fifth place with Phil Reed in sixth. You got Ville Ruler in P7 and Paul Ilbrink in that eighth spot. Bringing things down then to the bottom end of the top 10, you have John Mulder and Severi Seppa lining up down in P9 and P10. Ashley Beard in P11, Anthony Lumpkins in P12. Fabio Birchtold, Aurelian Jim Lewitz, Frank Nguyen and Matthew Mitchell bring things down to P16 out there on the starting grid. Andreas Eek in 17th. Evan Imre starts in the 18th spot, and Medema in 19th, and Arndt Holberg on that 20th and final spot. He did not set a time in qualifying, which is why he's all the way back there. The only driver not to set a qualifying time, in fact, but Medema's time wasn't particularly good with the 2.8 seconds he was off of the pole time. So drivers taking themselves to the back straight, or rather the end of the back straight here to form up behind the safety car. So it's not going to be too long here, Ryan, before we get underway.
Yeah, it's only a short pace lap, and it doesn't really give a chance for these guys to just settle down and they just get into the mindset of heading into the race. And there's a few corners around this track you can maybe try and make a move around, especially you've got turn 11 into the hairpin. You can try and make a move if you try and catch someone out and lunge up the inside, but it kind of requires both drivers to cooperate and give each other a bit of room and respect. And also you've got the turn 1, which is the first turn, and then turn 13 you've got the spoon curve. So there's a few places that you can make a move, but other places that you've got to be wary, especially through the SE section, as we get underway with the pace lap.
Yep, we will. So off and away we go, and soon you'll see that pace car dive on towards pit lane. We're heading our way through the exit of 130R at the moment. Once that pace car pulls down on towards the safety of pit lane, the field will be under control of that driver on the left-hand side of your screen. That's Suelio Almeida in the number 1 car. Paul Ulbrink, quite fittingly, in the number 2 car. And it's like that all the way down the field at the moment. I don't think I've ever seen quite this, but you can see Ulbrink further back in the field. Well, Almeida, he was accelerating to the start there, trying to duke out his opponents behind, but this is the real start. Pace car on toward pit lane. We are green flag racing here at Suzuka as they all storm their way down in towards turn number 1. Almeida's gotten a very good start here. It's all action though for second place between Seitz and Woodford. Woodford looking to make some ground on the outside here through turns 1 and 2. They are still side by side for second place, coming through the S's for the first time. Seitz almost got forced very wide there, coming through the S's. And speaking of wide, Ross Woodford out into the grass. He drops back a huge amount of positions, somehow able to keep a hold of his car, but he's just about in a side-by-side battle now with Valkiavi in the number 6 car there as they head up through towards the middle sector for the first time. Now you got to search for your braking zone into the first Egnas. It's very tricky to go too wide through there, which is why you see everyone get single filed out there, with the exception of battling further back. There's Paul Ilbrink getting involved with Ville Ruler back in the pack, but action on the first lap here, Ryan.
Yeah, that incident with Woodford could have ended up in disaster, and he done well to keep control of the car and avoid having a big incident. But Paul Ulbrink at the moment under huge pressure as he come down into the 2 left-handers.
Yeah, absolutely. There's Ulbrink there trying to fight for that 7th place and doing a good job out of it right now, as it was a bit of a flurry of action in the mid-pack there by not seeing anyone fall off. We had Arndt Halberg that did not start because his iRacing had an error on startup, so he wasn't able to join the race. Battle further back in the pack though. This is for P10 as Jock Mulder trying to secure position over Severi Seppa. So that's actually the battle for 9th place going on right now, and a bit of side-by-side behind between Beard and Birchtold as well at the end of the first lap. But everyone seems to have gotten their way through just fine for the first lap of 15 that we'll get to see here at Suzuka. So everything a little bit calmer now as we complete that first lap. Drivers setting themselves up for moves though down in towards the first turn. That's Birchtold on the outside of Lumpkins there, trying to hold position for positions just outside the top 10. That's P12 and 13 right there.
Birchtold held it on the outside and he done well to keep hold of the position, but further back, or further up the front, I should say, as I get my words right. We've got the battle going on between Paul ranking at Rolla and Seppa and a few other cars as well. So and just watching as well, the pack seems to have spread out a little bit, quite surprisingly. And we're only lap 2. So at the moment, everyone's starting to spread out really early.
Oh, Valkiavi made a little error coming out the second deck, now coming over where the track crosses over itself, and Rula is able to gain that position. They all stack up into the hairpin though, that's always the danger. It's such a slow portion of the circuit with a very heavy braking zone, and you won't be surprised if you see dives coming down through there, but Ashley Beard still trying to fight here with Mulder. This has been a fight that's been going on since the drop of the green flag, but Beard has been able to come out on top in this one so far. And everyone giving respectful racing room for the moment, which is kind of surprising to see, since we've have seen our fair share of first lap incidents in this series, but not so here in this one. Everyone's been able to take it cool, calm, and collected, which is what we like to see.
Absolutely, and it's the Pro Mazda community is known for that, for having a hard but respectful racer, and Ashley Beard at the moment having to defend his position heading into the final chicane. Whoa! Someone's off in the background.
Yeah, did see that. That was involving Birchtold, but somehow I think he was able to hold on to it, as we'll get the replay up on screen for you now, as you can see him. I think he had an absolutely massive lockup coming into the Casio Triangle. We'll get to see it because he was involved in this little fight between Jim Lewitt, Nguyen. You got Lumpkins up ahead as well. So Birchtold has done very well to try and hold position here despite that big lockup. So we'll get to see exactly how it happens then. In through the XO130R braking zone into the triangle they go. And Birchtold, big, massive lockup through there. The number 20 car, that was Lumpkins. That's had to really, really slam on the anchors for that. But good on Birchtold to be able to hold on to that position, at least for a while. But I see on my timing screen right now, he has eventually been passed by that number 20 car.
Yeah, done real well to stop the car running wide, and he managed to still get it turned into the chicane and not cause an incident or get caught up in an incident. So he managed to get going again. But back up at the front, the battle for third place is going on between James Pinksker and Ross Woodford, and Woodford, after that disastrous start, is on a recovery drive.
Yeah, he really is. You can understand trying to fight side by side for second place through the first sector, and the phrase I'm going to use is cold tires. That's not exactly going to be helpful there when you're immediately thrown into the battle at the start of the race, and you might have dipped 2 tires into the grass and just caught him and went wide through the first sector. But he did a very good job to hold on to it. In fact, he's going for the move now over Pinsker down towards the inside at the triangle, and Woodford has been able to make the move stick. And that's the important thing coming through the Casio Triangle there, Ryan. You need to be authoritative, and you need to try and wrestle that inside away, because it's so easy for that car that you are trying to pass to come right back at you.
Absolutely. It's if you make a mistake into that chicane, if you get wrong-footed on the entry, it kind of compromises your exit, because the car behind you you've just passed can use that slipstream down the home straight to try and make a move back up the inside into turn 1, as we look at the replay of Woodford making the move and managing to make it stick.
Yeah, Pinsker gave him a lot of room there. But, it's early on in the race, so you can perhaps forgive him for doing so. He's going to try and stay in the slipstream, stay in the tyre tracks of Ross Woodford, and maybe try and follow through once Woodford tries to challenge Greg's seats. Meanwhile, your race leader, by the way, Suelio Armedia, has 2.6 seconds over the rest of these guys, so he's said goodbye. I'm going to ride off into the sunset, and you guys just scrap for those more minor podium positions behind me.
Yeah, he's just basically pulling away at the moment, and like I mentioned before, he's pretty much the man in form at the moment in this series, taking the win at Mid-Ohio, and again, just pretty much in command in form, pulling away, building up that gap to about 2.6 seconds now. and just controlling the pace and controlling the gap, and he's leaving the rest of the guys behind him to scrap him up themselves, especially these two guys, Greg Seats and Ross Woodford.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, the more these guys battle, and the more that leading gap will extend. So Almeida wants these guys to be fighting side by side almost every lap. Woodford might set up for a move here on the exit of 130i. Certainly close enough to be able to make something happen into the triangle. He's going to choose to potentially go the long way around. Seats was very defensive there into the chicane. And it looks like he's been able to get away with it for now, but the big issue comes this final corner, very long pit straight as well. You can just sit inside that slipstream, and Woodford will be able to have an opportunity all the way to the pit wall. He goes, gives him the inside for turn number 1. Seats trying to take the big wide arc, coming through the first 2 turns, and does he have the speed around the outside to be able to get this position defended? Not quite yet. Woodford is actually through in that instance, so great move there from the number 3.
Yeah, it was a fantastic move by Woodford. He managed to get the move done, and as we're going to look at the replay now, and just he gets the runner and Seats down the home straight, and he goes to the inside, and Seats, I think, tried to hold the momentum on the outside to try and get the run and keep the position, but Woodford just said that I'm not intimidated by you, and manages to pick up the position and got a great run in the exit of turn 2.
Yeah, and you see Seats just washed out a little bit through turn 2. That gifted Ross Woodford the opportunity to nip his way by. So Woodford has been able to regain his second place. He so desperately fought for in the opening lap of this race, but fought a little bit too hard, went out into the grass through the first sector, but he's back there now. But look at what it has cost him. 3.2 seconds to the race leader.
Yeah, it's pretty much these guys are scrapping away. They're losing time to the leader, Almeida. They should, Woodford just got a bit sketchy there on the exit. But if they stop scrapping amongst themselves, they could easily or possibly catch up to Almeida. But at the moment, it looks like it's going to be a battle for second and third step on the podiums.
It looks like we're on board with Greg Seats, or Seitz, or however you pronounce it, in towards the Casio Triangle then. No opportunities for him this time around. He might be just biding his time, try and utilize the slipstream down these long straights and be able to keep Woodford within his sights, because Woodford has actually gained time on your race leader on that last lap, gained about 0.3 of a second. So Woodford, he has about half a race distance to be able to close up your race leader, but with more laps like that, it might even be possible.
It's possible. I mean, look at Ross Woodford. He's, from my experience of racing in this car in the series this season, he's one of the quickest people in this car, and I think he's one of those people that can be a threat to Almeida. And I think he just needs to try and pull away from Seats and just build up a bit of a gap, just concentrate on what's in front of him, and just try and put down some qualifying laps and try and close that gap.
Yeah, I mean, he's lost a lot through through the first sector there, though, because that gap that I did spot come down to about 2.9 is back up to 3.2. So that's perhaps where Woodford is weak. And we did hear from some of the drivers in the interviews from last week about what their setup philosophy is here for Suzuka. And there's 2 different options that you go with. You either go for the high downforce to really get an absolutely mega first sector, or you go for the low downforce, you go for the straight line speed that helps you pretty much everywhere else. And it looks like Woodford has gone for that latter option here, at least considering his sector times compared to Almeida.
Yeah, I mean, from my experience or some of the drivers I've spoke to in the series this season, some of them seem to go for the high downforce just because it seems to suit the car more, but especially around Suzuka, you've got high speed. I think Seats has got the run on Woodford as a head down to the triangle, but he can't make a move and decides to back out of it, so Woodford keeps the position. But at the moment, it looks like Woodford, even though he's quick, he's not able to get away from Seats, or even this man that we're riding on board with, James Penske.
Pence's got a good view of this. You can see if Seats actually does try to dive down the inside at turn 1, shows the nose, but nothing doing otherwise. He's just applying pressure to the rear wing of Woodford, and sometimes that really does work. Tries to really stress out that driver ahead. If you are always on the back of them, always on their gearbox, it's going to be more likely that they're going to crack unless they're a particularly strong-minded driver.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at the moment, just watching Woodford now, he's managing just to increase make a little bit of a gap. But I think Seats might be on a lower downforce setting, so maybe he's went for a low downforce for the straights. And unlike Woodford, who's probably went for high downforce for the high speed corners, as the Seats rather is under attack from the Pinsker, who tries to take a wide line and tries to get a tighter exit to get a better run, but can't get close enough.
Yeah, Pinsker has just kind of been on the outside looking into this one, at least over the last couple of laps. He hasn't had any big challenges just yet, but that was at least a look into the hairpin. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does start to turn up the heat, and if he doesn't feel confident that Seats has anything in the tank to try and get by Woodford, he might even try to force the issue and say, well, I can just get these passes done and I don't need any outside help. But at the moment, it is still Seats on that final step of the podium, but definitely coming under threat from Pinsker. No opportunity this time into the triangle, but you can just see visually that Seats is starting to lose a bit of time to Woodford.
Yeah, and this Woodford's pulling away a little bit now, so it looks like Seats might have maybe just not overheated his tyres, but maybe just lost grip a little bit, or just backing off to look after the tyres for the closing stage of the race. But at the moment, it seems to be this is the closest battle on track. But I'm just looking throughout the field at the moment, and I'm looking at the battle for P8 and P9 at the moment. Ashley Beard and Severi Seppa. It's they're battling just for inside the top 10, and this has been a pretty interesting battle to watch at the moment, and it's been really close for a few laps.
Yeah, they've been, like I said, very close for a few laps, and within half a second at the moment, just dipping in and out of that margin. So I wouldn't be surprised if these guys, again, start to turn up the heat coming into the final couple of laps of this race as well. So there are a couple of things to look at in this one. You've also got some battling outside the top 10 as well. You have a bit of a train behind Jim Lewitz here, who's currently in 12th place. So that one might potentially give us a bit of action for the end of this race. But I just kind of want to go back to this podium fight, I guess we'll call it now, between Seats and Pinsker, because Woodford is continuing to pull that gap on your third place man at the moment. So Seats, he just kind of has to start looking in his wing mirrors now instead of directly ahead of him.
He does, and Pinsker is pretty much he's just been sitting there and thereabouts, not trying to make any moves straight away, just watching how this battle's in front of him's panning out, and Woodford's pulling away ever so slightly now, so Seats is keeping an eye on his mirrors behind him, and I think it's only a matter of time before Pinsker gets by Seats, possibly.
I mean, he's looking potent at the moment, and a good run out of the Casio Triangle and through the final corner might set him up for a move into turn one, and, well, look at that, it's Seats not all the way to the pit wall like we've seen some drivers do when they're trying to defend the inside coming into turn one, and they leave a lane, and that is where James Pinsker decides to strike down the inside at turn one, inside at turn two, gains him the position, and can Seats do anything about this coming up through turn three and turn four? He'll try to apply the pressure, but the answer to that question is going to be no. Big threat though coming through the middle of the S's, but again, it's nothing doing, and that's what happens when you leave a lane on the inside there. Yeah,
Seats should have been a little bit more aware and defended his line or moved a little bit closer to the inside. But I think he kind of Pinsker just about made contact with his right rear wheel, and Pinsker managed to get up the inside, make the move, and Seats just ran a little bit wide and lost momentum, and that allowed Pinsker up the inside to pick up the third place.
And that does look almost exactly like Woodford's pass over Seats, because it was the same situation where Seats washed out coming through turn two, and the car on the inside just got an absolutely fantastic drive, but Seats out of this. He's now abusing that slipstream, and if he can keep close enough, he can actually have a challenge into 130R. He can have a challenge into the triangle as well. So this final podium position still up for grabs here between these two drivers. Phil Reed is about 2.7 seconds behind. You see him over the brow of the hill, down towards the inside at 130R. Griggs trying to make the move, makes contact. Pinsker spins into the gravel trap, and that is why you have to give responsible racing room through 130R. It wasn't our greatest view of it. We'll see the replay from up above in just a couple of moments' time, but that was an aggressive move from Zeitz that Pinsker is going to be very frustrated about.
Yeah, that was a bit naughty from Seats. As I look at the replay now to see what happened, and they heading up to 130R, it looks like Seats has got the run in Pinsker, and I think Seats wasn't close enough. I really don't think he was close enough to make a move. Yeah, that's on Seats for me.
It is a very, very late move there. We'll get another look. We'll get to see another view, but yeah, Pinsker he has no idea that there's going to be a dive here, and it's in as a move into the braking zone there. And I mean, it's more of a racing incident for me than anything else, and so Pinsker can't be too hard done by that, but still, it's probably not kosher. Maybe a last lap sort of move, but we're about 6 laps from the end. But yeah, that one's a hard one to take if you're Pinsker.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand it. If it was a last lap move that you were doing, then fair enough. But with something about 5 laps remaining in this race, it's a bit naughty.
Yeah, he's on the pit lane, so he might have a bit of damage that he needs to have repaired. So that kind of has sealed our battle here for that final podium spot. Although, I will say, I think Seats might have a little bit of damage. Let's have a look on board with him. It would be the right side of that car. Can't quite see. You probably have better views of this than I do. I'm seeing a little bit of a scrape to that side pod, maybe a little bit of floor damage. So if that impedes Seats' pace through the final laps of this race, then that driver right there, Phil Reed, might be able to close the gap. It stands at 2.6 seconds at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's more than possible that Phil Reed could possibly catch up to Seats, because I'm just looking at the moment to see if there's any damage on the Seats' car, and front wing looks fine. I can't see any body damage, so Seats is a lucky man to get away with that, and it doesn't seem to be anything, or can't see anything cosmetic on the body of his car.
Yeah, we're riding on board with Valkiavi from Finland, and he's currently preoccupied with this battle for P5 between himself and Paul Ilbrink. Ilbrink slowly but steadily trying to hold his position, worked his way through the field a little bit as well. So it's been a decent race so far from Ilbrink, and Valkiavi trying to spoil that a little, just following in his tyre tracks at this moment, but it's still coming towards the closing stages of the race now, just a couple of laps to go. So Valkiavi's time is of the essence a little bit here. I saw Ashley Beard go, oh, there's a car slow. There's a very, very slow car. That's Pinsker. No, it's not Pinsker. There was a car that was very slow there, and I can't quite tell who exactly it was. I'm not sure if you have any more information there, Ryan?
I can't see who it was either. I think it looks like it could have been a back marker, possibly.
Possibly. There's Andreas Eek, who is one of those back markers. He's in 14th place at the moment, but yeah, it's a bit of a weird situation that didn't quite get the ID on that car. But back to this battle for P5 then. Ilbrink versus Teemu Valkiavi through 130R. 4.5 tenths of a second between those two. Valkiavi closing in towards this final sector. Ilbrink careful. There's a big rotation coming through the first apex of the Casio Triangle there, but he's able to hold it. Coming through 130R, he's getting the tail end of the slipstream to Phil Reed as well, so that is really helping him out in this battle.
It is, and Paul Ilbrink, a name that they're always familiar with. He's been in the F1 World Championship Series before, and he's a really quick driver on open wheel cars, and having a decent race at the moment. But I think he admitted last week he's not where he wants to be with this car. He wants to be closer to the front, but at the moment he's still having a good race up there in 5th position, but he's under attack from Teemu in 6th place, so this battle could probably go down to the last lap.
Could do, as coming out the S's section, sometimes these cars get particularly squirrely coming through there, and something that happens in a lot of the machines as well is as the track green just changed a little bit on that at first look very gentle left-hander, but it's very easy to go wrong coming through there. but on the brakes into the hairpin now. Ilbrink, well, he's also got his sights set ahead a little bit here because Phil Reed's, down to a second between those two at the moment. But Valkiavi giving Ilbrink something to be concerned about behind, as that gap is now below 0.2 of a second on the way into Spoon Curve. This is as close as Valkiavi's really been over these last couple of laps, so this is going to be a good chance for him to sell it for a move through 130R and into the triangle. And perhaps, if he can't do it there, in towards turn number 1. So a lot of options here for Valkiavi, but not a lot of laps to do them in.
Yeah, they've not got long left, and it looks like Ilbrink might have just run slightly wide on the exit of 130R as the Timu closes up under braking, and if he can get a great run on the exit of the chicane, he could possibly try and get a run on Ilbrink heading down the swamp straight. But it looks like both of them could possibly be running the same downforce configuration, which might make it a little difficult.
Yeah, you can see Valkiavi closing up, but not enough to be able to make anything happen going through turns 1 and 2. So Ilbrink will be able to survive, and Valkiavi will have to continue his challenge. But both of these guys are still reeling in Phil Reed, as this might end up being a 3-car fight for P4 if Reed isn't too careful.
It's possible. I mean, Phil Reed, he's not been slow or anything like that, but it just seems to be at Ilbrink and Timu as well seem to be that slight bit quicker than Reed. So, like you say, we could be on for a 3-car battle for 4th position.
And while this is going on, we'll see if there's any big dive from Valkiavi into the hairpin, and then we'll get a look at the man that's been really dominant throughout this race, and that is this driver, race leader from Brazil, Suelio Almeida. He has a little bit of a fan club in our chat, I've noticed, at least in our YouTube chat, and well, they're quite justified in feeling very proud about their man at the moment, because from pole position, just eked out that gap. It's 3.2 seconds now, and with a couple of laps to go, he can just park the bus and come home with yet another race win. So no one's really been able to challenge Almeida here. I did mention that Woodford might be gaining bits and pieces on him, but Almeida's just managed this gap expertly, and Woodford hasn't really had any hopeful split times to be hopeful about, I suppose.
Yeah, Suelio's not been doing anything silly, and he's not been overdriving the car. He's just been controlling, just been nice and smooth, controlling that gap, and just keeping a nice consistent pace. And Woodford's really, is it Ilbrink's under attack, heading down to turn 1 as well. Actually, Ilbrink's making a move and getting up a position on Reed. Sorry.
Yeah, Ilbrink making the pass into turn 1 there. So got a good drive out of the final turn, and we saw that gap just collapsing over the last couple of laps, and Ilbrink has been able to make the move now when it matters. And can Valkiavi do the same? That's the issue here. It's about 2 laps to be able to make this one work, and with how Ilbrink and Valkiavi have been gaining on Reeds, I think this will be a pretty quick affair. It might even happen up into the hairpin, depending on how these two Degners go, as it seems like Reed has dropped off the pace a little bit compared to these guys in the back end of this race, which is why he's coming under threat from these guys. He's already let one go, and a big puff of smoke into the braking zone for the hairpin. You can tell the pressure is really starting to get to him now.
Yeah, and just watching as well at the moment, it looks like the pressure's getting to him a little bit, and he could possibly lose a position. I think Reed's not a slow driver by any means in open wheel cars. He's pretty decent, but it just seems to be at the moment he can't keep up that pace like he did before. It just seems to be once Ilbrink and Timu as well caught up to him, he just seemed to go off a little bit. It just maybe not the pressure, but maybe just deciding that it's not worth fighting these two guys because they might be slightly quicker than him, but they're coming up to the final lap soon. And if I was Reed, I would just maybe try and fight Ilbrink to try and get back by him and regain that 4th position.
I mean, it might be an option if this good run out of the final turn. You can see Ilbrink immediately going defensive all the way to the pit wall. We are on the final lap of the race, and it's still not decided here for P4, 5, and 6. Ilbrink, Reed, and Valkiavi into turn 1. No opportunities for either of those two drivers behind the number 8 and the number 6 car. Almeida at the front still has that 3-second gap over second place, so he is basically clear from this point. A bit of a look there from Valkiavi as that third car in line in this group, but trying to make a dive here in the S's section is not going to be fruitful at all. You just have to wait for the hairpin, maybe spoon curve, maybe 130R in the triangle at the end of the lap, but I think it's going to have to be one of those options now for Valkiavi. Reed has dropped it a little off the back of Ilbrink as they head on the run up towards the biggest braking zone on this lap. And there's a big look there from Valkiavi, but not able to make anything work. Reed has to pull out all defensive stops right now to be able to hold on to this one. There is Suelio Almeida heading through the exit of Spoon Curve. There is this battle for P5 and 6 heading their way through the entry of Spoon Curve. So Phil Reed, he's going to have his work cut out here. He has the help of the slipstream from that Radicals Online car ahead of him to try and keep Valkiavi behind. On the way into the entry of 130R now. No one close enough for absolutely massive dives in this group, but it might happen. Reed's got a good run coming through 130R. Looks to the outside of Ilbrink for P4. Not able to make it work. Different lines taken by all of your drivers, but Ilbrink, Reed, Valkiavi in that order at the line. There is your race winner of Suelio Almeida. He takes another win here in the Indy Pro 2000 Championship on iRacing, and he doesn't want to celebrate too long with the disconnection there. But the rest of the runners are heading their way across the line now. We might potentially have a close battle further back. That was for P10, Jim Lewitz and Nguyen. Jim Lewitz comes out on top in that battle as and Medema was involved in that as well. Everyone else coming out the final corner now, trickling their way across the line. There is Pinsker. He did manage to come out of the pit lane after his repairs. He's definitely not the winner like the graphics show, but what could have been in that podium fight if he was still involved. So with that, we'll get to show you your official race results here at Suzuka. Suelio Almeida top of the pile as ever. That 3.1 second gap was consistent throughout the entirety of this race. Woodford, a second place. Seats, after controversial contact with James Pinsker, is able to come home with the third step on the podium. Ilbrink able to hold on to P4 as he'll be 10.5 seconds behind your race leader. A great battle between Phil Reed and Valkiavi at the end, but Reed is able to keep position in that instance. Ashley Beard finishes in P7, Severi Seppa in P8, Fabio Birchtold in P9, and Aurelian Jim Lewitz rounds out the top 10 here today. Anne Medema, Andreas Eek, Frank Nguyen, Evan Imre, Matthew Mitchell, James Pinsker, Job Mulder, Anthony Lumpkins, and Ville Rula will round out the 19 cars that took the start. And of course, we had Ard Oldberg that did not start this event. So with that, we'll see you guys in just a couple of moments' time. But before we get our pre-race show, post-race show, excuse me, underway, we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Don't go away.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $400,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Coming up to the line, being chased, and it was Braden Johnson. Unbelievable finish. It was 1/1000th of a second between them.
Green flag in the air. We are racing in the 2020 24 Hours of Daytona.
They go door to door for the feature race lead here on the last lap of the race. Side by side for the race lead in the final corner at Homestead.
Down the back straightaway, 3 wide again for the race lead. This is unbelievable stuff here tonight.
Loma is going to have to be very deep on the brakes, and he is very deep on the brakes. It's side by side through the corner. This is for the win.
It'll be side by side. Davies low, Ottinger high. To the very inside is Garrett low. 4 wide at the stripe. For all he's with here on this outside line, neck and neck. Who's going to back out? Does anyone back out? Verstappen starts to squeeze on the inside, and now he'll try and straight line it. Goes under the apron, drag race to the line. It's so close to call.
The racing here at Suzuka is done for round number 10 of the Indy Pro 2000 Championship here on Race Sport TV Friday primetime. I am Connery Maddock. I'm joined by Ryan Walker here for our post-race coverage and a couple of interviews with the drivers as well. We saw a decent race today here, Ryan, at the Japanese racetrack, but it was one man standing head and shoulders above the rest. Suelio Almeida. What a performance! And again, it was the same as last week.
Yeah, he was pretty much the man in form tonight, and they continue where he left off at Mid-Ohio last week, and pulled away at the start of the race, built up a gap, and then just basically maintained and controlled the gap, and for pretty much the rest of the race, and everyone else was left to scrap amongst themselves, especially the battle for the second and third place steps on the podium, and also we had that battle of Paul Albrink, Phil Reed, and Tebow in the closing stages as well for fourth position, with the Dutchman Mr. Albrink taking fourth position in the end.
Yeah, it was a decent drive for Albrink as well, and actually we'll get to speak to both Almeida and Albrink in just a couple of moments' time. But again, another very decent race here, which is kind of what we've expected to see from this series in recent times. It's been giving us a lot of fantastic action throughout this season, and now we're coming into the last couple of rounds. I think that if that trend continues, then we're in for a decent finish to the season as well. Decent's my favourite word now, apparently.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting finish to the season, and I think we're going to have a pretty good battle for the championship as well, with the likes of Woodford, Almeida, and Greg Seats as well. And I think it's going to be exciting to watch, and I think it should be good also in the mid-pack as well, because it seems to be new drivers are joining the series, and I think the series, or the racing in the series, has been good to watch, and I think that's the thing that's attracting people to this championship as well.
Yeah, I think so too. But without further ado, we'll actually bring Suelio Almeida into the commentary box for a little bit of an interview. Suelio, another strong drive from you today, coming home with the race win from pole position as well. How are you feeling at the moment?
I'm feeling slightly lucky because I saw that Greg and Ross had less wing, and we talked about having wing or not last week. And it was actually very, the times were very similar. So I could basically choose between having a good straight line speed or having more fun at the S's. I chose to have more fun at the S's. It's definitely much quicker and much more comfortable too. So of course, I needed to really nail those S's on the first laps so I could get away from the draft, from them getting my draft. Then it would be my my end if that happened. So yeah, I'm very happy with the qualifying. 4/10, like really, really, really happy that I tried like a suicide lap and it worked. And at the start, I was like exchanging for who I gave the draft on the beginning of the race, so they could fight a little bit on the first corners, and I could get that gap that I needed. And it worked. Like they were fighting the 2, 3 corners and the first two or three corners, and that worked very nice for me. And then after that, I was just like trying to get in the flow state, not getting distracted. I had a scary moment at Spoon where the car just snapped and I could save it, but that was like the only place where I really had some problem.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're really really happy with the choice, with the wing, with the performance, and with the consistency as well. I think I did like 0x, so I really like those things.
Gotta get
And-
that safety rating.
Oh yeah, trying to reach like the 499.
Yeah, absolutely. But we did notice that you were particularly strong through the first sector, which is where you were able to gain most of the gap to the cars behind. And Woodford was able to pull in a little bit through the rest of the lap, but that gap was always hovering around 3 seconds. So you did a good job at managing the gap. But one thing Woodford seems to be pretty annoyed by was your shenanigans coming to the start with going and then, in his words, slamming on the brakes. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I saw him talking about that. I didn't actually slam the brakes. I mean, it may be an exaggerated idea because when we're nervous, we see everything happening so fast. I actually just lifted a little bit so I could get more RPM boost from my first gear. I didn't intend to. It wasn't my intention to like trick anyone. I generally don't do that. Of course, I wanted to like not wait for the green lights and not wait too much or not be too close for the pace car going in. But yeah, I will actually see that replay. I probably lifted a little bit so I could have more torque from the first gear. I'm sorry, Ross. I didn't expect to be that deceiving in terms of like trying to gain any kind of advantage. Actually, I remember right now that when I punched the throttle on the first gear, he was actually changing gears from second to first. So that's probably what also happened to make a little bit of a gap there on the start. But yeah, sorry. I will try not to do any kind of any kind of weird move on the next races.
All right, there we go. Speaking of those next races, the next sort of races on the calendar, I suppose I'll say. And there they are up on screen for the viewers, at least, right now. So we've had this round number 10 at Suzuka. We head to Luxor Raceway for round 11, Laguna Seca for round 12, and Nürburgring Nordschleife for round number 13. Which of those, out of those 3 tracks, do you feel that you're most competent at?
Laguna Seca for sure. I really like that track. I know it's secret. I've driven I've driven with the Formula 3 a lot for probably like 3 or 4 seasons at Laguna Seca. So I really think that's going to be my good one. You just said that we're going to race at Nordschleife. So I'm probably going to start practicing that right now because it's so huge track. And I'm pretty sure guys will be very much prepared for that. So that's my next concern, actually.
Yeah, I bet it's a big concern with a lot of drivers with these cars at the Nordschleife. Should be an interesting finale, should be a lot of fun as well. But thank you very much for joining us, Suelio. We've got more interviews on the way, but good job on your win.
Thanks.
There we go. That was Suelio Almeida coming home in P1 here today. And Ryan, we have Paul Elbrink up into the commentary booth now. So take it away, Ryan, and let's have a discussion with your 4th place finisher.
Yeah, Paul Elbrink finishing in 4th place after a fantastic battle with Phil Reed and Timo Valkazarvi as well in the closing stages. And Paul, that looked like a fantastic battle to watch. How is that from your view?
Yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with how I did. Like, I didn't put a whole lot of time in it, and like I made a silly mistake on the first lap when running a bit wide in Degner 1. So I lost the position, and with Ross also having gone for some off-track excursion, it's caused a situation that he like drove away from the guy that just overtook me, from Timu, I think. So from that point, we didn't have any draft anymore from the guys in front, so that's made it quite a challenge to get back there. But yeah, once I got like in the lead of that pack again, was just doing qualifying laps all along till I caught Phil at the end, and then we had some nice racing again with a bit of overtaking, so that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, once you guys caught up to Phil, it looked like a fantastic battle. And was there any plans to get by him as quickly as possible, or did you want to try and use the draft to try and pull away from Timo, or was it just basically once you caught up to him, just it was every man for himself?
Yeah, just every man for himself, I think. Like at that point, I think, well, when I caught him at the first time, I nearly screwed it up again because I had like a moment in Degner 2 where I nearly went into the wall. So I had to like catch back up with Phil again. But luckily, yeah, that happened. And at that point, like not many cars were in front of him, like anywhere close. So I figured I'd just try to get in front as soon as I can with not having to overtake 2 cars or something if Timo would have caught up and overtook me or something. So I just took the lead and luckily was able to defend that in the last 2 laps.
And lastly, before we let you go, any thanks you want to give out?
Sure, you guys for doing a nice broadcast. I'm looking forward to watching it. And my teammates at Red Cross Online and our partners and sponsors, Armor Centrum, Cranfield Simulation, Track Racer, Joe Real Time, and Turn Racing, MOATF Podcast, Six Sideways, and Pixel Dust.
Good stuff. Well, thanks for joining us in the booth, Paul. And again, congratulations on 4th place. And look forward to seeing you on track next time. All
right.
Well, there we go. Paul Brink finishing 4th here today at Suzuka for round number 10 of the Indy Pro 2000 Championship. We'll speed through the rest of these interviews. We've got 2 more to go as we can actually bring Phil Reed into the commentary booth from Team AOR that finished in 5th place here today, trying to hold on to a couple of positions at the end there. Phil, how tough was it?
Super tough. I wasn't feeling super confident on the car. I felt like it was a little bit low grip for me, so I was kind of just underdriving the car for the whole race. So I knew once they got to me, I didn't really feel like I had too much fight in me, but I gave it a go. So it was pretty tough to at least keep Paul behind. I feel like once I got into his slipstream, it was a matter of not making mistakes to keep Timu behind. But yeah, it was good.
Yeah, we did see you that gap did come down relatively quickly. Was it really a big issue with pace at the back end of the race, or is it just another situation there which you might look to work on for the next couple?
I'm not 100% sure. Like, I feel like with a lot of cars, I don't quite like people towards the end of the race just pick up the pace. I feel like in general, like the 2 behind me, like both Paul and Timu, just had more pace anyway. So I wasn't too disheartened that they were catching me. I certainly made a mistake at some point in the midpoint where Paul had fallen a bit behind and then he caught back up because of it. And I think that just put me off my rhythm for a couple of laps, which cost me a bit of time. But then I didn't feel like it was too bad. Like for me, like I was happy coming in, to place. Like I'm surprised that I qualified as high as I did, to be honest. So I was fighting people that I didn't expect to be. So hitting 5th in the end, I'm actually very happy with. Like even though I got swamped at the end a little bit, I wasn't too bothered because I kind of expected it.
Yeah, especially in a pretty strong strength of field as well. This is the broadcasted race. It tends to attract the big names in this series. Of course, you've joined us for a good couple of races as well. But I believe this is your best finish, if I'm correct, at least on these broadcasted races. I
feel like maybe I did. I feel like I did this broadcast race at Spa where I got 3rd.
Oh yes, I mean that was
in that final fight.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. I remember that now.
But that's funny because that race was just pure luck. That was all just me being in slipstream and the slipstream being way too strong and me not losing just enough in the corners. Like I was probably like 0.7 a lap slower normally, but the slipstream so much I was able to just stay with them.
Yeah, but it's a decent finish, perhaps a little bit more on merit this time around here at Suzuka. But same sort of question to Soelio earlier. You got some tracks coming up. You got another oval. You got Lucas Oil Raceway. You got Laguna Seca. You got the Nordschleifer as well. And I'll ask the same question to you that I asked him. Which of those three do you prefer?
Well, it's not the oval. I don't do oval, so. Well, I mean, obviously, just in terms of just driving and everything, Nordschleife is so good. But it's one of those things where I've never been so good at it that I feel like on outright pace I could ever win a race at Nordschleife. Like, it would just be purely on survivability that I could ever win. Which, to be honest, I'm actually not so bad at surviving Nordschleife. I know that track well. But it certainly, to be honest, in a lot of ways, it's kind of easier than Laguna to get pace out of the car. But Laguna, I also really like. So it's a toss up, but I think I'm looking forward to Nordschleife just because you don't get to race it that often in open wheel stuff, especially. So I'm excited for that one.
It's that big wild card at the finale of the season. It will attract maybe some Nordschleifer specialists, and we might see some good pace out of those guys compared to a lot of people in this series. Because personally, I know about the first 2/3 of the lap pretty well, and that last third is just kind of I'm waiting for the corners to come at me. So, I'm not a Nordschleifer hot lapper at all. So
no, and the unfortunate thing with the Nordschleifer, the last third of a lap is just a whole track. Most tracks.
Yeah, so it can be a big concern, but is there anything you want to say before we move quickly on to Pinsker?
No, I just want to say thanks for the broadcast, and I'll shout out my sponsors real quick: Hype Energy, GT Omega, and Elgato Gaming.
Oh, there we go, and well done on your 5th place finish here today with some tough competition.
Thank you very much.
There we go. That was Phil Reed finishing in 5th place today for Team AOR. Brilliant finish for him. And very quickly, we will have a little bit of a chat with Mr. James Pinsker, who unfortunately ended up finishing quite far down the field, down in P16 after contact with seats through 130R. And Pinsker, I gotta ask, what's your opinion of that little incident?
Oh, wow. Firstly, hi. I've never been in here before. First time booting up TeamSpeak in a long time. So yeah, that was fun. But yeah, it was very mixed feelings today. The incident itself, earlier in the lap I'd made the move on Greg, and I was very pleasantly surprised with how my pace was turning out. But then Greg gets a bit of a run, and he goes for a move into 130R that he pulls out really late, and just before the apex of the corner there's some kind of desync contact, which then sends me into a spin and damages my car. So I was out on the spot. So yeah, that was definitely the result had a lot to be desired today, but I think I was very pleasantly surprised with the pace, considering I only just started practicing again in this car. I think there's more to come. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's very, very mixed feelings, you have to say.
Yeah, and I don't really blame you. It is one of those incidents through 130. Yeah, we did mention at least on the live pictures we were thinking that it was a bit late for Zeitz to head down the inside, but the actual contact itself, online racing is online racing sometimes, and unfortunately those things can and do happen. But it's just sort of putting this race behind us now, looking towards the last few rounds of the season. Of course, we've got 1 oval, 2 road races coming up. Do you think you can at least get a good finish towards the end of the season here?
Well, yeah, so it's going to be all about positive energy, and I think there's definitely been enough evidence today to suggest that I can be a bit more positive. You've probably seen me in the broadcast races up to this point, probably being quite quiet around in 8th and 9th, but today I think it was a very positive step. I got the setup working pretty well, but even so, I was very surprised when I crossed the line in qualifying to go 4th. And then I feel like I was the 3rd quickest guy today, and just because Greg went for an aggressive move and I got a bit of bad luck with desync doesn't mean I'm going to temper that optimism. So Suzuka's been a good track for me in the past, so I need to bear that in mind, but with a bit more practice in the future, hopefully you'll see my name up there in the podium places a bit more often. Let's hope anyway.
Yeah, well, we'll get to see in the last couple of races here. Yeah, at least on your fastest laps, yeah, on your best lap, shall we say, you were close to matching Zeets. So you definitely would have been up there, continuing to scrap it out with him if the race had gone more in your way, shall we say, with that incident. But overall, how would you sum up your season here? Because you did mention that you've kind of been in the bottom end of the top 10 a lot, but what's the overall attitude right now, apart from hoping for positive vibes coming into the final couple of rounds?
I guess for the season, I think the first point is it's a very enjoyable car, and I'm very glad that iRacing has added it for this season. Secondly, it was just generally been quite tepid. I mean, the racing is always quite fun. I feel like the slipstream is a bit too powerful and the dirty air isn't quite powerful enough. That's my personal opinion. But what that does mean is you can get very electrifying races. So it's been enjoyable from that standpoint. But again, mainly across the season, it's been very tepid, very calm, measured, quite low results that have put me, I don't know, I guess feeling a bit pessimistic. But I think over time, yeah, this car I think I've been driving pretty well, and I think today was evidence that I can fight towards the top more in future. So yeah, I'm pretty positive. I'm going to go out and drive this track a bit more now, because I'm definitely enjoying it. And yeah, hopefully I'll get to see you guys more in the future.
Yeah, hopefully as well. We definitely wish you all the best in your next couple of races, and like you said, hopefully we'll be able to see you fighting for podium positions once again. But thank you very much for joining us.
Yep, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Well, there we go. That was James Pinsker, who ended up finishing P16 here today, but in the early stages, definitely fighting for those podium spots right at the end there. And I think, if that incident hadn't have happened, we would have had an absolutely amazing fight for those final couple of podium positions. But we kind of just got denied it, in a way.
Yeah, we did. It was just unfortunate about that incident between James and Greg, but that's one of those things that happens, and it's good to hear that James is not being negative or being down with himself. It's great to hear that he's enjoying the car and the series as well, and I think that's a good thing. And I think, from my experience as well, it's a fun car and series, and I would highly recommend giving it a shot if you haven't already.
Yeah, and it's a pretty fun car to drive. It's a pretty fun car to drive around this particular circuit as well. But I think that's going to be all that we have time for here on this week's edition of RaceSpot TV Friday Prime Time. Next week, we'll be heading to the Oval. Lucas Oil Raceway comes at you. Same time, same place next week. But I've been Corey Maddock. That's been Ryan Walker. And we'll see you guys next week. Exact same time, exact same place, like I said. But enjoy the rest of your evening.